Yeah.
Hey, buds.
Anyways, how the fuck is The Last of Us?
Okay, so I gotta be pretty specific with what I can and can't say about this.
Yeah, no
so
doubt.
I've got the embargo in front of my eyeballs, so I know exactly what I can and cannot say. But from the section that I have played, that I'm allowed to speak about, it's pretty damn good.
Okay.
It's pretty damn good.
Okay. Okay.
So the part that I'm allowed to talk about right now is a combination of two things. One, the section from the original E3 gameplay demo, where Ellie's kind of climbing through a parking garage and sneaking around and doing some stuff.
She goes under the truck at one point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that part, and also the part that was at the end of State of Play this past week, where she's kind of infiltrating a hospital.
Watch that twice today as well. So sick.
Man, I hadn't watched the State of Play until this morning.
Yeah.
And the way they went about it is so different from what I did.
Oh, see, that's what I was saying when I was watching it, was I really hope that there's going to be 3-4 different ways to go about these little levels that they've built.
That's one of the things that has struck me, especially during this part, is even if the area doesn't seem that open, it makes it feel open. It makes it feel like you can go in any direction. And if you have any kind of inbuilt video game logic, whatever direction you go is going to be okay. You're not going to run into an invisible wall.
Right. Yeah.
Which is kind of a cool feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. If all of the routes as well are as smooth as the one that they showed in the State of Play, where like I really liked the moments where she's shooting, she gets a couple kills, and then she makes her way through the door. She like squeezes through the door, and then she blocks it with like a couple crates or something like that. It's all just like super seamless, super cinematic, and I was like, man, if they're able to have like this sort of seamlessness 4 or 5 different ways through the level, oh man, it's going to be so much better than the first one. Not that there weren't a few different ways to tackle the spots in the first game, but I don't know, it felt like there was a route you should take, you know what I mean?
I kind of wish that I had found that elevated area to pick some people off from, but
no doubt.
In my experience, I try to be relatively sneaky for as long as possible and try to take some people out silently. The problem is, just like in the last game, the shooting mechanics and the weight of the guns, it's not necessarily easy to rip off headshots like they do in that State of Play. It feels really good when you do, and you manage to pop a few people in a row, but all it takes is one missed shot and half the camp knows where you are. And the AI seems really good at flanking around and finding ways to get in behind you. Once you're revealed, it's pretty frantic. And I think it was Druckmann who was talking in the State of Play about the level of tension. That's definitely the case. Once you get found out, it is a frantic sprint to try to find something that you can hide behind or hide under, break that line of sight. There's no real hidden and revealed states. There's plenty of phases in between there where there's kind of gray areas. You're not sure who knows where you are. You're not sure if there's something that's a threat that you're not noticing. So that's really cool.
So you were mentioning the stealth mechanics as well. I don't know how much you can talk about, but just like compared, I always think like naysayers of the first often brought up the stealth mechanics of the first one being something that they didn't like. So what say you about the second one and the little parts that you've played? Is it more forgiving than the first, or is it even more difficult?
I would say it's some of both. It's more forgiving in that once you've been revealed, you can become hidden again.
Okay.
You can hide. You can get away and break off the pursuit, which feels relatively natural, but it's also got a bit of Metal Gear Solid, like, oh, I guess she's gone, going on as well. I think it's more difficult as well, though, because it's going for such immersion that there's never an indication of where the threat is, unless you happen to be in the listen mode where you can see the outlines through some objects,
Right.
or kind of see where the threats are. You're not going to get any indication on the screen of, oh, someone sees you and they're behind you. It's an audio cue of someone can maybe see you right now, and they might actually see you in a second, so you need to move, but you don't really know which way you should move, so that generates a lot of tension as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think the moment-to-moment gameplay is a big step up from the last game.
I mean, that's really what we want, right? You know the story's going to knock it out of the park. But, yeah, I think that's really what people are looking for. An improvement on the minute-to-minute gameplay. It's good to hear that it's improved.
Yeah, and I think something that Naughty Dog has always been outstanding at, but I especially took note of in this game, is the attention to detail is absolutely bonkers. It is so far beyond anything else I've ever seen in terms of what little touches they've put into the world. Obviously, some of the texture work and vegetation that you see in that state of play with, how the Pacific Northwest looks is incredibly lifelike.
Yeah.
But some of the things that Ellie does as well are, there was a rope puzzle I ran across during this particular section, and I grabbed the rope at the end closest to where it was attached, and she started winding up the rope in this super lifelike fashion around her hand, and I picked up and put down the rope several times just to watch this happen, and moved around while she was doing it. There's such flexibility in the animation system that it always looks natural. It always looks like she is doing this because it's the thing that you need to do. Like, you need to wind up the rope if you want to carry it around, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I jumped off of an elevated spot, and it was I landed kind of on a stairway, and she stumbled a little bit in this really natural way into a railing and put her arm out super naturally. So I don't know if all those things are canned or if it's that that animation system they've been talking about doing work. But man, it looks so good. It looks so good.
Yeah, and I was noticing in the State of Play trailer the facial animations too. Like, these are the most realistic looking character models I think I've ever seen. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ellie especially carries a lot of emotion in her face, even in the gameplay. If you spin the camera around and look at her, depending on the situation, usually the in-game models look a little more like trolls than they do in the cutscenes.
Yeah,
but it's pretty well done here. You can see kind of, the weight that she's carrying.
I was gonna say, I've never seen a character with like so much pain on their face.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't say too much about that.
No doubt. No doubt.
So yeah, I mean, more technical stuff that you probably noticed from the State of Play thing is the lighting and just the amount of volume it manages to generate in the world, especially with that gray Seattle sky. There's a lot of opportunity for god beams and things to kind of break through the trees and look insane, or sheets of rain to come down in really realistic ways. They've done an outstanding job.
I thought one of the most interesting effects that I saw in that trailer was a dark room, and Ellie pulls like a flare out, pops the flare, and the way that the red lights up the room, it's crazy. Like, you talk about god rays, man. Mm-hmm. Amazing. I cannot wait to get this game and actually see it in motion for myself.
I'm playing this game so slowly. My completion time is going to be completely unrepresentative of the length of the game, because I'm just, looking at literally everything, getting as close as possible to surfaces and going, how the hell did they make this texture look this good on a PS4? Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah. I don't know how they did it.
Well, this is kind of what happens when we get to the swan song phase of any
Yeah.
given console. So like, oh well, we know it like the back of our hands now, so everything is gonna come out looking absolutely incredible.
Every time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I can talk about. Oh, yeah, I did some crafting, and there's a little bit more flexibility in how you are growing your character compared to previous Naughty Dog stuff.
So like, as someone who's not extremely familiar with these games, is character growth pretty railroaded most of the time? Is it just like, oh, you get stronger, but there's not a lot of tree branches, like, or do they have that? It's just more than before.
I mean, if you're thinking about the Uncharted series, there's no character growth. It's just
Okay,
you're
well,
Nathan
then
Drake.
Yeah. Well, what about The Last of Us, the first one? Since I've not really played that either. Is there any sort of like character growth you can kind of manage, or is it just, oh well, you're this far in the story, so you're this strong?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that you get stronger throughout the game.
Well, I mean, character growth in any direction, really.
Yeah. I mean,
I think the kind of growth that you experience in these games is more, I have reached this point in the story and now I have this option. I have like smoke bombs or something.
Right. Okay. So like,
and a little less like
expansion.
now I can move faster, but they do have that system now where you're able to along the way, and believe it or not, these things are completely missable. You can find like textbooks along the way which teach you new upgrade paths that you can follow.
Oh, okay. So don't miss the textbooks.
No, you have to go out of your way to find them.
Yeah. Okay.
There was one in this section that I absolutely could have missed, and I found, and then was able to upgrade things that I would have been stuck with unupgraded. And the resources for those things seem pretty scarce. So you're definitely not going to be maxing out any trees or lists in this game.
Okay.
So you're making some hard decisions about what you want to get better at.
Yeah, and making the bow and arrow more stable, that's absolutely the thing I wanted, because I love just whacking somebody right in the back of the head with an arrow.
So satisfying.
Well, plus in a world where ammunition is likely scarce, you want the sort of stuff you can put together without too much trouble, you know?
Super scarce. Yep.
Yeah.
It's... The ammo scarcity reminds me of the early Resident Evil games where, like, literally every shot has to hit. You can't afford to miss.
Do you feel like there are better upgrades than others? Like, if you take, upgrade A and B, you will be much better off than if you take C and D?
I think it depends on your playstyle.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair
I don't want
enough.
to
So,
reveal too much about what those paths are.
Sure. But you wouldn't say that there's like a meta?
No.
No.
I'm sure people will come to whatever the consensus best build is over the course of, like the first 4 days after the game's released, but
fair enough.
I think there's a lot of flexibility to play this thing how you want. Like, you can definitely stealth your way and sneak through just about every situation without engaging. But you got to be pretty good. So
Right.
it inevitably, for me, gets to the point where there's just too many of them, and I mess up, and it gets messy, real messy.
As was the case with the first.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But it just sounds like this is so much more fleshed out, fluid, smooth, fun.
I mean, they said it in that state of play thing. It is without a doubt the most ambitious world they've ever built. It feels so open.
Yeah. Even in the, like, I wouldn't call them necessarily closed off spaces that they've shown off, but like even when Ellie's outside, when she was like swimming through that little spot at the start of the State of Play trailer, you could feel the scope of the world that she was in, you could feel like the vastness of it all. Even though, again, like, you knew that you were kind of in this closed off area, you could tell that there was more going on than than what you saw on screen, I guess. It's the
Yeah.
world felt very lived in, what they were showing off. It feels very lived in. It feels like these
Yes.
people are, like the discussions between the people are crazy that you overhear, you know? The side dialogue, you know, the actors that they've brought in have done such a good job from what we've seen. Yeah, it all just feels so natural, so much more natural than the first one. And they did a good job in the first one with that, but man, it looks like they just completely took this to the next level.
Yeah, to touch specifically on that part where she's swimming, the part directly leading up to that is fairly branched. So there are quite a few ways you can go through, like I said before. My video game logic tells me that there are not that many paths, but it feels like there are a lot of paths. So whatever voodoo magic they are putting into this thing to make it feel that open, when just from how technically good looking it is, it cannot be that open.
Right.
The illusion is there. You suspend your disbelief.
The illusion of freedom.
Sounds like a Telltale game.
Everyone will remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys are curious about that I might be able to answer?
I would say one more thing about this game that really has impressed me. I don't know if you remember episodes ago on the podcast, I was talking about how I don't know if I was going to believe this, like, this teenage girl going through these spots and like beating up on these guys and doing what Joel was doing in the last game. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that connection. But what I really noticed in that State of Play trailer that Naughty Dog seems to have nailed is that there's never a time where Ellie is like beating a guy up. She's never like, you know, fisticuffs beating a dude's jaw in. She's always getting the advantage on them before she like goes in for the kill, you know, whether it be like sneaking up on a guy, putting the gun to the head and then dragging him to where he needs to go, or like, you know, stabbing somebody before he notices, or getting the headshot from a distance. Other than the interaction with the first girl that she meets in that State of Play trailer, there's never a time where she like overpowers anybody. I feel like it's really smart in that sense that they really like paid attention to that. It feels realistic in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. She's not superhuman.
Right.
She succeeds because she squirms her way through. She makes it work with what she's got available. From the part that I have played, it makes it feel more like a true survival experience, or a true representation of what somebody in that situation would be going through.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like Saints Row, or it wouldn't be like Spider-Man or something like that, which are, you know, they have merit in their own right, but Naughty Dog is very clearly going for something that's super realistic and super easy for people to see themselves in that situation.
Yeah, I fully expect Ellie to be bruised, bloody, and broken by the end of this one.
I can't say, man. I wish I could.
Yeah.
June 12th. Friday, June 12th. That's when our review will drop.
Oh, so then you'll have like 3 times as many things to say by then. God, it's gonna be wild. We're gonna have a whole like separate sit-down session.
Yeah, I promise my review and whatever other content I write about this game will be much more organized than this stream of consciousness that is based on hastily scribbled notes in a notebook.
Well, you're still operating under a lot of restrictions, so it's understandable that it's like very patchwork, you know?
Yeah. Last of Us Part 2 comes out on Friday, June 19th. Stay tuned to COD Connected for our review, June 12th, week before the game comes out. And see you back here for more Last of Us 2 content, but also other content. We got lots of it, so stick around and you'll have a good time.